Hello, welcome to this episode. Today, I really want to focus on my own personal expansion and give you a little bit of a background of how I got started, what my expansion story is like, since this is the main focus of my channel, my podcast, everything I'm about. I love to feature people's expansions and see how we can learn from their stories. So, I've got to put my story in there too. So there's a lot of different ways I can connect this, or even start. So I guess from the beginning, I guess I'll give you a little bit of background. I'm originally from California. I moved around a lot as a kid for my dad's job. So we were in Ohio and Chicago, Illinois, Texas, New York, back to Ohio, back to California. So we moved around a lot. I always felt this restlessness and longing for a place to belong, and also a longing of wanting this, knowing that I had this deeper purpose or deeper power, but I had no idea what I needed to do. So I felt these feelings all through kind of growing up. I basically thought that that sense of longingness was because I moved so much, and I was like, well, I don't know where my home is. But turns out that's also because I'm from the stars. So if you feel that kind of longingness, probably you're also from the stars. So that's a huge a sign for us to start that kind of curiosity if you're feeling that kind of like, where do I belong? So that was the longingness that I figured out, and the sense of the higher purpose or something bigger I was here for. I tried to search that in a lot of different ways. I searched that through religion. I searched that through career, in people, all throughout my life up until this point. And for religion, this looked like on and off going to church as a kid. We identified as Christian. We went to different types of Christian churches, and then fell away, went back, fell away, went back. So wasn't heavily religious growing up, but it was there. We did talk about God, higher power. Then fast forward, take me to college. I just moved to Chicago, and I was at a community college, and I was studying to be a nurse. So I was looking for community, I was looking for relationships, friendships, and I saw this group of girls at a book club, which I was assuming was a book club. I walked up to them, introduced myself, and wanted to connect. So I ended up connecting to these girls, being a part of their book club, which was actually a Bible study. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Maybe I'll loop back around to, to God, to religion. And turns out it was a very intense cult that I didn't know that I almost joined. So that threw me back away from religion, and I was like, okay, that's not the route, obviously. That's not where I'm going to figure out where I belong. So then I really leaned in hard to my career, which I was already, going to school to be a nurse. So this took me through this path of wanting to connect to help people. So I'm like, okay, I felt this longing of helping people. Nursing, I'm able to do this. I'm able to help get people better. I'm able to communicate with people. I loved talking with people, and even now that I look back, hindsight, of loving to start this podcast and really hold space for people. That was one of my favorite things as a nurse, was actually being able to hear people's stories of their past or how they got where they were or whatnot. Typically, I worked with the older population in the cardiac unit. So I started in the cardiac unit. This took me to, at that point, I was living in Chicago and moved to New York City. Followed my parents, were living there at the time, and my sister and I were like, yep, let's pick up, let's go to New York. So I hitched to New York. I ended up getting a position in the CT ICU, cardiothoracic ICU, which I was really excited about. And this was kind of a starting point for this idea that I was reaching to be a nurse anesthetist, a CRNA. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. I get to live in New York City. I have my own apartment. I'm, really honing in on my skills as a nurse professionally, and thought that this was the key. This was what I was going to be unlocking. Now, through that process, and this was, I want to say, 2018, roughly. I'm not the best with dates, but we'll say 2018. This is at that moment I was, again, had my own apartment with a patio in New York City, making pretty good money. I had my own career. I was dating somebody. Looked like I had everything all together, right? This was my first moment of having this breakdown of that rock bottom of like, holy shit, this is not the life I want to live. And now I can put words to what I felt of that feeling, that really intense misalignment, and feeling like I had to do something, change anything, everything to get rid of this feeling. I was like, okay, well, I built all of this, and this is super not feeling resonant, super not feeling good. I was really anxious, working nights, had the worst acne ever on my cheeks. I developed cystic acne on my cheeks, which I had never had in my life. Was incredibly thin, running 1,000,000 miles because I was training for an ultramarathon at the time. Body was super stressed. Not particularly happy with my relationship, but feeling like, but it's good. But like on the outside, it's good. I should feel happy because everything ticked off all the boxes, like why would I want something different? And it was a moment where I hit this bottom piece, and I was like, everything's got to go. Everything has to go. So within a few months' time, I ended up quitting my job, breaking up with my partner, moving out of my apartment, and I moved back in actually with my parents. Tried to regroup myself, and I took my first kind of self-improvement course. It was a women's empowerment course, and took that, and opened me up to meditating. I started doing Kundalini yoga. I started to kind of connect the dots of like just this inner piece of like, okay, I could do these practices and it's spirituality and I feel connected, but I actually don't have to identify with religion. Like, I don't, that all the constructs that I really fought growing up, when I was going to church, of, different rules and roles, I didn't necessarily agree with. And any time I had questions or doubts, it wasn't really receptive with leaders or with adults, because they should have the answers, but they didn't necessarily have the answers that I was asking. So I was like, okay, so I'm on to something. And again, like as a kid, like growing up, I also felt connected. Like I would always feel this craving to like, in and out throughout my life, I was, would get tarot readings, would want to go into spiritual shops, just kind of drawn to those kind of shops of this, like, ooh, like my soul was really like tugging at me the whole time. And so we're fast forward. I moved out of this apartment, really trying to work on myself. Still, at this point, was 2020. I had officially, right before everything happened in 2020, I moved out of my apartment from the city, moved into this little place, Long Island, Long Beach, Long Island, with my parents. And from there, I, had time to kind of focus on myself, and really got to start to, get my health back together. Had a balanced diet more, was lifting weights instead of running as much. Just kind of more in a relaxed nervous system. One of the big reasons why I decided to moved back with my parents for a minute was because I had accumulated a lot of debt while living in the city and trying to keep up with this lifestyle when I was like drinking and going out and living this New York lifestyle that really run me down. And it didn't dawn on me until afterwards, where it's like all felt so heavy, where everything was just like heavy on my shoulders and just like, oh my God, I'm in debt. I hate, don't love my job, don't love, who I'm with, don't love how I feel. So, all of that had to go. And so within that process of rebuilding myself from scratch, really stripping everything that I had created, that I personally had involvement with all of those decisions, I created that reality. And then I looked around and I was like, whoa, this is not the reality I want to live. So in that process, at that time, my sister and I, this is like 2021, no, end of 2020, almost 2021. My sister and I had bought a house in New York, and we bought a house together where we were able to create our own sanctuary and really build this space that we really longed for, and was able to do since we stayed home. Both were living at home, saved money, bought the house, and that was my safe space to explore all these different areas that I was interested in. So at this point, I saw on Instagram this random ass like reel post or whatnot of this person doing light language. I had no idea what this was. I just saw her speaking this language, moving her hands, and I sent it to my friends being like, oh my gosh, watch this. It feels so good. And I just felt so drawn to it. I had no idea why, and I kind of forgot about it, actually. It was a few weeks later, I clicked on a interview of this lady. It wasn't even titled, it was titled, I forget what it was titled, like Purpose or Soul something, and so I clicked this interview. And it was of my one of my mentors that I had ended up using, but I heard her, Melissa Bates, I heard her do the interview. Then in the middle of the interview, all of a sudden speak this light language. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I saw on Instagram a few weeks ago. Like, this must be what it is. Like, what is this? So then, of course, my research, deep dive, I started to figure out, try to Google it, try to figure out what it was, like, why was I so drawn to this? And from there, I booked a call with her. She had these, one-on-one sessions. So I booked this soul session to just, it was like a reading with also a healing. And from there, everything opened up and started to make so much sense. Like, it was the first moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is the longing I felt. This was the bigger thing that I felt, because she had, revealed to me all these things about, that I am a starseed, that I was from a different, from the stars coming down here as a volunteer, and that I had this bigger purpose to serve, and that I had healing within me. And it was funny because now at that moment, when in that hindsight of her saying, like, you're going to be healing people with your hands, and I was like, well, this is funny because I'm already a nurse, and at that time, different story, different podcast, had started to feel really disconnected, how I was facilitating healing, quote unquote, as a nurse in this mainstream, in the mainstream medical field. I really was longing for something more holistic to bridge that gap of that mind, body, and soul connection with people, because I felt so much was missing. So I got off of that call and was just like, holy shit, this is what I had been waiting for. My soul was literally waiting for me to discover this. And at that moment, I really jumped in, I would say a few months later, I had signed up for her Light Language Academy, and I just have gone all in since, of just this slow awakening process of uncovering the layers of myself and remembering this inner soul relationship that I have with my own spirit and with my own divine team, and the connection that I had with God, with Source. And I was like, oh my God, this whole time that I felt this, it was actually for a reason. And I don't, if you have felt this before, I urge you to just keep going, keep exploring, keep listening to people's stories, follow your excitement, because if it's anything like how I felt, it was the most unsettling feeling, because I just knew I needed to be doing something, and I knew I was a part of something, but I didn't know what that was. And that is very frustrating when you're trying to live your life, but you feel this pull towards something, but you don't even know what you're feeling pulled to. So that's what led me to light language, which is my soul passion. My soul is just here to help people facilitate, speaking light language, and I'm here to just anchor in more light to the world and do incredible grid work around the world, and just hold space and hold this container for people to really seek their own soul remembrance on what they're here to do, what they're here to give. So if you feel any of these feelings, I feel ya. Reach out to me if you want to chat about it, because I know that it can feel very lonely and very frustrating to see what to do next, or to feel lost. And that was the biggest feeling that I have felt the majority of my life, is just lost, of this roaming kind of feeling. And it wasn't until I had that expansion session and dove into, uncovering who I was and slowly peeling back the layers of even what society, the matrix, the true history, how things are connected, how higher dimensional beings are here to help us, that are there in communication, and it just popped me open. And I keep on learning and uncovering and reawakening and awakening in different layers and depths the further you go into it. So this is just, it's been the most beautiful journey that I felt that I've been on. And I can only say that because I'm here now. During it, it was not pretty. It was me trying to connect, and questioning everything, trying to figure things out, looking towards other people, then feeling like, oh my gosh, it's not other people, it's actually within myself. And it's within that huge discernment process of listening to myself, listening to that gut feeling, listening to those hunches, listening to that soul whispers of yourself, and jumping into your expansion, and just following that pull of your soul, and continuously showing up for yourself, showing up for your own soul. And instead of, kind of burying it back down and getting rolled back into, the day-to-day things. So I just encourage you to keep on with your expansion, and I see you. You're doing an amazing job. It is not easy. This is not an easy path. I tell you, you meet so many, you meet all of your limiting beliefs, all your resistance, you meet all of your shadows within it, and at the point where you come to the spot, and again, this is a process. I have not reached peak awakening or alignment. It's a continuous process over and over and over of taking a step. Oh, does that feel right? That doesn't feel quite right. Let me just take a step to the left. Okay, I'll do that. Let me take a step up. Okay, no, I have to take a step back diagonal. Okay, so it's just continuous alignment over like each direction. So you continuously align yourself, continuously expand your consciousness, and expand your, allow yourself to continue this awakening and continue this path, and be open-minded and learn from people, and also trusting yourself. So it's within this process is really just enjoying the process, which is like the most cliche thing, is to like enjoy the journey. But that is for a reason, because it's never going to stop. Like, we're always expanding and growing, and we're continuously tuning into our past lives and anchoring into our higher self, and it's a process. So you can't do it all in one day. Believe me, I have gone down the research rabbit hole. So if you're there, take a breath, go outside. I guess I'll leave this little tidbit about my expansion with, if I were to, and I could make a whole different podcast about this, but if you're on this path in this journey, or if you're just getting started, the things I wish I would have known, but also want you to know, is things that you can do right now to help your expansion and just to help this process along, is to stick to your daily meditation. We have heard about meditation so much over and over and over, and I have totally ignored it for so long. And finally, I have actually realized how important it is. And I continue to realize how important it is the more that I get deeper into my practice of continuously making a commitment to meditate daily. I suggest doing at least 20 to 30 minutes. If you can, just start with 5. But the more that, to give more of kind of a viewpoint of why this is so important, is that the way that we connect and listen to ourselves is by getting quiet, and by creating space to detach from our body and to connect to that consciousness, empty space, that we actually are aware that we're energy and not just this physical body, because we can feel so limiting in this body. So I just really encourage you, if you have not started a meditation practice, to start a meditation practice, and to commit to it, because that would be the beginning of the expansion, where things just keep getting better and better once you commit to that. And that's where you really hone in on, really realizing how am I in my way? Why can't I sit for that amount of time with myself? Why don't I want to be with my thoughts? Why don't I, want to be with myself? Why am I so pulled to distract myself from social media or from the TV, or to just feed more information and zone out? Why am I craving that? So it's really giving yourself that space every day to connect back to yourself, to connect to your spirit, to your soul, to your higher self, to your divine team. We have so much support wanting to connect and help us, but we can't connect, and we can't even receive guidance from them if we don't ask, if we don't connect, if we don't create space for this connection. So I would start there. That's the main thing that I wish I would have known at the beginning. And you don't have to know it all. You don't have to understand it to know that it's true either. And another thing is that there are many truths that can exist at one time. So not having any judgment towards anybody else's path or what they perceive as their truth. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions about my journey or want to connect with me, I encourage you just to reach out to me on Instagram or on TikTok. I'm there at erica.eternalexpansion. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about my journey, or if there's any bits and pieces that you want me to expand on. I would love to do that for you. So if you have resonated with this episode, please share it with a friend, post it on your story, or whatever you feel called to. Write a review, or just give me a shout out. That would be incredible. So I hope you have an incredible day, and I'll see you in the next episode.